Hey y'all. So I wanted to talk a little bit about one of the frequently asked questions that I get. A lot of people ask me, well, firstly, it's a two-parter. First question is, does Ste'ce get meltdowns, or does he have meltdowns? And the second part of that question is, if so, what do I do? Like, to stop them, or whatever? Like, what do I do? Like, people just want advice. And the first answer to that question is yes, he does have meltdowns. It's very common. I'm not going to say every child with autism is going to have meltdowns, but it is common, and they all look different. So a meltdown, like one of Ste'ce's meltdowns, might look very different than, like, for instance, your loved one's meltdowns. It might look very different, because everybody's different. But the second part of that question, sometimes I have a hard time answering, because a little known fact about me, I really don't like giving out advice. I don't, because I feel like I'm not a professional. Like, I'm literally just figuring this stuff out like you guys. I'm just figuring it out as I go along. I'll just be making it up as I go along, and if it work, I keep doing it. If it don't work, I don't do it no more. But I'm gonna go ahead and give some, or try to give some, because right now I feel the need to step in and say something, because a lot of the moms and parents that I talk to, caregivers, whatever, that ask me this question, I just feel a vibe or something, maybe intuition or something, I don't know, that when you guys ask me this question, like, what do I do about meltdowns, like, you really just want to know what you can do to stop it, right? A meltdown happens, you kind of just really want to stop it from happening, or end it. You know what I'm saying? You just want to end the meltdown. You want it to get to a nice little level point. You want to immediately calm your child down. And I'm here to tell you that you don't have to. Okay? It's a very unorthodox, that's a hard word to say, thing for me to say. I know you didn't expect me to say that, but it's true. I've done my research, real life research, and from what I've seen, sometimes me just kind of sitting back and seeing what he's going to do is the best thing to do. Sometimes it is. So, yeah, I'm here to tell you that you don't have to stop the meltdowns. You don't have to regulate them. And my thing is, if your child is not hurting themselves or hurting anybody else or breaking things, then it's perfectly okay for you to let them go through those feelings on their own. It's perfectly okay, because they're okay. They're okay. It might not seem like it because a meltdown is happening or whatever, but they are okay. They're going through big feelings, and eventually, when you're not around, eventually they're gonna have to regulate those feelings on their own anyways. So why not just give them a minute sometimes? You see a meltdown happening, why not just give them a minute? And while you're giving them a minute, go ahead and do this with me, okay? You don't have to jump right in. It's okay. Take care of you. Deep breaths in through the nose, out the mouth. Because even though you give your child a minute, sometimes you might need to step in just a little bit, just to help them regulate that. Sometimes, not every time. But if you do need to step in, there's such thing called exchange of energy. Because, sometimes, your kid has a meltdown. And who can relate to this? Your kid has a meltdown, 15 minutes later, maybe 30 minutes later, whatever, how long it take, meltdown is over. Your kid is like back to normal. Your kid is back to normal, you know what I'm saying? They playing with their toys, they doing what they do, they happy, they chilling. Back to normal like nothing happened, right? Who can relate? Because every time for me and Ste'ce, back to normal like nothing happened, and then here you are, not back to normal. Because now you're feeling emotions now. They've released that energy. And then because you have to deal with them, they release that energy, and then you sucked it up. So now you're upset and you don't know why. So just take a minute. Give them a minute. Once you see the meltdown happening, you don't have to jump right in. Just give them a minute, see what's going to happen. Give them a minute for as long as you can take it. Just give them a minute. And then while you give them a minute, do your breathing exercises. Take care of yourself. And then if you happen to soak up that energy from the meltdown, after everything is done, because it does happen, you know, sometimes I still take in Ste'ce's energy, you know, it happens. But when it does, after the meltdown is over, I always try to go somewhere by myself. And for the most part, that place is the bathroom. Because, you know, normally you have privacy in the bathroom. Normally. There are some times where I don't have any privacy, and y'all all know what that's like too. But for the most part, I have privacy in the bathroom. So sometimes if I feel that I have sucked up that energy and now I'm taking that energy with me, I have, you know, self-care time after that. And I just spend some time by myself. Sometimes I scream, you know what I'm saying? Sometimes I splash my face with some water. But every time I do my breathing exercises, then whatever you need to do to calm yourself down, okay? Sometimes I take a little shot. It depends. If it's really bad, yeah, I will. Self-care. It presents itself in many ways, just as long as you take care of yourself. Okay? Now, I know y'all thought when I started talking about meltdowns that I was going to give you different tips and some kind of magic, boom, trick for the meltdown to go away. No, I don't have none of that. Okay? I'm still trying to figure it out. But for the most part, the thing that I have noticed that makes a huge difference is just waiting. Kind of waiting to see if it'll blow over. Because with the age that Ste'ce is now, Ste'ce is 19. So he's pretty mature as a teenager, as a young adult, to go ahead and try to regulate his own emotions. So there are times where he gets really angry. And instead of me just jumping in, like helping him, I'll just kind of sit back and see what's going to happen. And then if he looks like, you know, it's going to escalate and he can't handle it, he can't control it, and then that's when I come in with my soothing voice. That's when I, you know, try to figure out what's going on and help him fix the problem. But I'm going to be honest with you, sometimes I just don't do anything at all. And when I first started doing that, I felt kind of guilty because I felt like it was my job to go and jump in and help. It kind of is, but kind of not. Because you want your child to be able to do that on their own eventually. So just go ahead and let them have a minute. See what happens. You'll be surprised at the outcome. Because sometimes when I see a meltdown coming and I just kind of sit and wait to see what happens, like the whole time I'm nervous that it's gonna implode, it's gonna be crazy if I don't interfere. And it never is. Half the time he's fine. He just needed to yell or scream. He just needed to slam, you know, his straws on the table for a second. He just needed to get it out. And I didn't need to do anything at all. But, you know, what I think the issue is, why we moms just kind of want to jump in. A lot of the behavior that happens during a meltdown is like socially unacceptable behavior. Like you don't really want your child to be having a meltdown in public because it's not socially acceptable. People would get scared. People would be intimidated. You know what I'm saying? So I can understand your urge to want to jump in, but sometimes you don't have to. Especially if you're in the privacy of your own home. Like, honey, go ahead. Let it out, honey. Let it out. Honey, you got to scream. You go ahead. Okay? You go ahead. I know my neighbors be like, dang, they be screaming all the time. Yes, we do. Yeah, we let it out, honey. You can't keep it in. There have been plenty of times after a meltdown, after Ste'ce has had a meltdown and everything was fine, that I went right in my bathroom and to the top of my lungs. You got to get it out. Or cry, that's a different way to get it out too. I have a nice cry every day, every other day. Nice little long cry. A good old ugly cry, okay? Just let it out. Just let it out. But I said all that to say this. You don't always have to jump in. You don't. And I know y'all, some of y'all with the younger kiddos are like, she tripping. Yeah, I do have to jump in. No, you don't. Our kids are smarter than you think. They're smarter than you think. And a lot of them are more mature than you think. So just take a minute. If you have to, put on a minute timer. And just keep your hands off. Okay? You don't even have to talk. Sometimes talking makes it worse. Honestly. So just put a little timer on for yourself on your phone. A 1 minute timer. And just keep hands off while your child is going through whatever they're going through. And you just give them a minute, see what happens. And during that minute, take your deep breaths. You know what I'm saying? Do your countdown, if you will. The senses, 5 senses countdown. 5 things you can see. 4 things you can touch. 3 things you can hear. 2 things you can smell. And then the last thing is taste the saliva in your mouth. That exercise actually helps me a lot. The exercise don't really take that long, few seconds, but after you start doing it in your head, it really takes your mind off of everything else that's going on. So you could try that if you want to. I do it if I feel like I'm having a panic attack, or if I feel like I'm very stressed out or very nervous or very anything. I just do the 5 senses countdown, take some deep breaths, and then I go ahead and do whatever I got to do. So if after that minute, it seems like it's not going to, calm down, and maybe, it's really not what you want to go on, it's really not the energy that you want, and you don't want it to escalate, then yes, go ahead. By all means, try to do what you can for your child. And some tips and stuff that I use is redirection, which is really just the art of distraction. Kind of just try to change the subject and focus on something positive. That sometimes works with Ste'ce, because he has ADHD, so he gets distracted easily. So that sometimes works. Ste'ce has a weighted vest that's like, I think it's like 20 pounds or 30 pounds. That sometimes he puts that on, and that calms him down. So I use that method also. Sometimes if meltdowns are looking a little bit more aggressive, like maybe he's slamming down his tablet, and I really don't like him to do that. Them tablets are expensive. If they get that crazy, or if they escalate that much, then Ste'ce has a punching bag where I send him to go ahead and take his frustration out on that thing. He always come back much calmer, because he's tired at that point. Because, man, he be going ham. He be beating the mess out of that punching bag. He be beating the sugar honey iced tea out the punching bag, okay? Punching bag got a Band-Aid on after he finished, okay? But that helps too. So, yeah, you can find little things that help out. A nice soothing voice is always the way to go if you're going to talk to them. Don't try to go too much up and too much down, or too much down. Like, don't go too low and don't go too high. Don't yell, but don't whisper. Just like a nice little medium. That usually works. Kind of how I'm talking right now. That usually works, or helps. But like I said, out of all these tips and tricks I'm giving you, the one I need you to remember is you need to take care of yourself. And you actually don't have to jump in right away. You don't have to. You don't have to. Trust me, you don't have to. And the more you give your child a minute and see what happens, the more you're going to see what they can do on their own. Trust me. Trust me. Taking my hands off things sometimes is just the way to go. Because half the time, Ste'ce already know how to regulate his emotions, and he already know how to help himself when he having a hard time. He already knows half the time, and I really didn't need to do anything at all. And you will never realize that if you don't just give your child a minute and see what they do. As long as they're not hurting themselves, okay? And I know that for some of y'all can't just sit back when a meltdown is happening, because sometimes a meltdown can get violent. You know, you're worried about your child hurting themselves. You're worried about your child hurting you. Sometimes that does happen, okay? And I have not, you know, experienced any of that. So I really don't have advice for you. And my best advice, I guess, I could give you is to seek help of a professional at that point, because we haven't experienced that, so I can't really speak on it. But I know some of y'all can't just sit back, but those of us that can, okay? Those of us that can, give your child a chance. You might be surprised at what they do. Okay? Bye.